Welcome back to Moving the Needle. I'm Chris Fink, founder of the MedSpot Agency, author of The Patient Magnet, and your host for this series. This is episode 4 in our 4-part Patient Magnet growth series, and it's the final episode in this mini-series. If you've listened to the first 3 episodes, you probably have a good sense of how the patient magnet works. Attract brings people, and the right people, into your world. Convert turns them into informed, confident decision makers. Retain transforms one visit into long-term value and retention. And now we get to the final stage, which is the Amplify Lever. Amplify is the stage that separates unpredictable growth from intentional growth. It determines whether your business scales smoothly or shakes under pressure. It determines whether your team feels energized or overwhelmed. It determines whether all the work you have done to build a strong foundation actually pays off. Amplify is not about doing more. It's growing at a pace your systems, your team, and your economics can hold. When you do this right, growth is exciting. When you get it wrong, then everything feels strained and just like you're under constant pressure. So in this episode, we're going to go deeper than surface level capacity planning. And I want to talk about things like what actually breaks when your practice scales too soon, how to determine your true operational capacity, how pricing and offer mix influence your ability to scale, how to strengthen your systems so that growth no longer feels like pressure, how authority accelerates that growth without adding chaos, and how all 4 episodes of this series connect into a single predictable engine that you can run forever. So this is the episode, hopefully, that gets you to scale with clarity instead of chaos. So let's get into it. Most med spas, they don't struggle because they lack demand. They struggle because they try to scale faster than their systems were designed to support. The owner sees momentum, and new patients increase, ads are working, the calendar's full, and the instinct is to push harder. But what typically happens underneath that push is response times slow down, consults start to feel rushed, providers fall behind, rebooking becomes inconsistent, follow-up slips, clarity weakens, small mistakes tend to multiply exponentially, and energy drains from the team. And from the outside, the practice looks busy, but inside it feels strained and chaotic. It's not a marketing problem. It's not a team problem. It's not even a leadership problem. It's a capacity problem. So scaling does not reveal your strengths. It reveals your cracks. And Amplify is about fixing those cracks before you add more volume. So let's put Amplify into the right context. As I said earlier, attract brings the right audience into your world. Convert removes friction and increases clarity. Retain stabilizes revenue and deepens relationships. So Amplify is the accelerator. It increases the flow of everything you've built. And here's the important part. Amplify, it's not a separate tactic. It magnifies whatever already exists. If attract is unstable, Amplify magnifies instability. If convert is inconsistent, then Amplify magnifies inconsistency. And if your retention and retain steps are weak, then Amplify magnifies rebooking failures and lifetime value decay. But if the first 3 stages are strong, then Amplify magnifies those strengths and stability. And this is why the best med spas, they scale deliberately, not reactively. They build the system first. They accelerate this system. And if you try to scale without a fully functioning patient magnet, you don't grow faster. You just break faster. So let's talk a little bit about capacity. Most people think that capacity is or equals open spots on the calendar, booking openings. But real capacity is how much volume your team can hold without reducing quality, without increasing errors, without rushing the experience, without losing the emotional margin required for great care. Capacity is emotional, operational, and clinical. And it shows up in questions like how many consults can each provider handle while delivering full attention? How many high complexity treatments can you realistically schedule in a row? Where does your team consistently lose energy during the week? And when do handoffs feel smooth versus chaotic? Does follow up decline when volume rises and sales increase? Do patients still feel deeply cared for when things get busy? If doubling demand tomorrow would cause quality to slip, then you've reached your capacity ceiling. You don't push through that ceiling, you raise it intentionally. So, raising capacity often requires adjustments like restructuring the daily schedule to protect clinical focus, staggering provider shifts so you can distribute the workload, strengthening handoffs so that nobody is improvising, create 5-minute pockets after complex treatments for documentation, charting, soap notes, remove unnecessary steps from the patient journey, automate as much communication as possible, the communication that doesn't need human attention, and provide front desk support through those high volume windows. Capacity is not just a number, it's a lived experience, and Amplify only works when that lived experience feels stable. Now, pricing and busy and scalability. Once demand is predictable, pricing becomes one of the most important levers for scaling. And here's some truths. You can be fully booked and still lose margin. You can be busy and still feel financially stuck. You can scale volume and actually reduce profit. This can happen when popular services have a weak margin, time-intensive treatments are underpriced, your product cost is not aligned with your pricing, complexity is not factored into price, old pricing still reflects early stage comfort instead of current expertise, over discounting, over incentivizing. And before you increase volume, you have to look at these things like what services produce the strongest margin? What services drain energy but produce very little profit? What treatments take the most coordination? Are you priced in alignment with the clinical skill being provided, the demand level, and the outcome quality? And does that pricing reflect the practice that you are now or the practice that you were when you opened? Scaling weak pricing never really leads to financial strength. It leads to resentment, it leads to burnout, and it definitely leads to cash flow anxiety. Amplify should increase margin, not stretch it thinner. And when you get next into your offer mix, when you're starting to look at that, offer mix is one of the more underutilized levers in med spa growth. Two practices can have the exact same appointment volume but feel very different internally. And why is that? Because your offer mix can change the entire operational pattern of the business. Offer mix includes the length of the visits, the provider focus, team coordination efforts, rebooking patterns, margin per hour, scheduling complexity, training load, retention behaviors, and follow-up requirements. And if your menu leans too heavily to short, low margin services or very high coordination treatments, visits that require significant handholding, or services that produce inconsistent outcomes, then scaling will drain energy rapidly. But if your menu emphasizes high trust services, strong clinical outcomes, predictable follow-up cadences, healthy margins, treatments that deepen long-term loyalty, then scaling becomes far easier. Amplify is not about increasing everything. Amplify is about elevating the services that actually create growth. And growth moves at the speed of people. And probably not many levers will matter more than this one. If your team already feels stretched at your current pace, more demand will not feel like opportunity. It will feel like punishment for success. Term and team readiness is not measured by enthusiasm. Most teams will say, like, yeah, we're excited to go. We're excited to grow. We're excited to lift this. But team readiness is really measured by clarity. And some useful questions on that might include, do your providers feel like they have enough time to think, explain, and guide? Does the front desk feel supported and confident? Or do they feel reactive and completely overwhelmed? Do team members know what to do when something goes wrong? Is communication rhythmic, predictable, or is it chaotic and last minute and frenzied right before the appointments? Do processes feel smooth or do they feel heavy and burdensome? And does your team feel ownership or do they feel like they're always catching up all the time? When you scale, whatever the team feels today, they're going to feel more of it. So if they feel calm, organized, and aligned, Amplify will feel exciting. If they feel rushed, reactive, or unclear, Amplify will feel unfair, even if revenue increases. Scaling should feel like momentum, not like pressure. Now, the next thing about this is your authority signals. Authority is the quiet lever that makes scaling easier. It's the invisible support beam of your entire growth engine. When your content, your consults, your explanations, your patient communications are consistent and educational, something important happens. You stop having to sell growth. Growth starts coming to you. Authority does three things. It reduces the cognitive load on your team. It reduces the emotional burden of having to convince your patients. And it increases alignment because patients already understand the philosophy behind your care. Authority protects capacity. It enhances retention. It produces higher quality new patients. It reduces objections and friction during consults. And it creates clarity between the expectations and the reality. The stronger your authority is, the safer your Amplify levers become. So let's bring the growth series, the patient magnet growth series together, and let's zoom out a little bit. Episode 1 talked about scaling ad spend and how that only works when your customer acquisition costs and your lifetime value work together. Episode 2 and Convert showed how conversion leaks quietly destroy profitability. Episode 3, we talked about how retention transforms your economics and stabilizes your practice and its business. And then here in episode 4, we're talking about capacity, pricing, offer mix, team readiness, and the authority, and how those things determine whether you're ready to scale. Put together, this patient magnet becomes a unified system. Attract brings in the right people. Convert turns clarity into commitment. Retain transforms commitment into long-term value. And Amplify increases volume at a pace that the system can hold. This is how you can design growth instead of chasing it. It's how you can scale without chaos. And it's how you can build a med spa practice that grows year over year. I hope this series has helped you see your practice just a little more clearly. And if you want to identify which levers will produce the biggest improvement for you right now, I'd love to talk with you. Inside our free strategy sessions at the Med Spa Agency, we look at your demand quality, your consult structure, your retention system, your pricing, your operational capacity, as well as your marketing. And then we can help you pinpoint the most productive levers to pull next. You can book that session at themedspaagency.com. And thank you for being part of the Patient Magnet Growth Series. This right here says it all. Your growth should be designed, not an accident. And this is the end of the mini-series. Again, I thank you. And if you like, follow, and subscribe, there'll be more content coming out. And if you know another med spa practice owner that could benefit from getting some of these things right or some of these insights, then please share it with them and invite them to join along and follow. And you can also message me for our private Facebook group for med spa practices who are looking to implement the growth magnet and self-implement. For now, my name is Chris Fink. This has been another episode of Moving the Needle. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.